Team, here we go. Boom, see? There we go. What else we got for me tonight?
Okay, we might be on, we might not, but
Oh, so Janice did tell me the other night on Monday that, when we came back, it never came back.
it bleeped. Yeah, we're gonna,
Okay.
That's a routine. Correct that on that.
well, we have a different, we're going in a different way, which I'm trying to do right now, so.
Okay.
YouTube did some kind of upgrading and blew out our,
Is that when they do up to red?
Yeah.
so we're doing RTMP instead of whatever the other letters were.
If I should,
So I'm trying
Some
to,
make a letter combination work.
yeah, I'm trying to make it work.
YouTube.
Begin streaming.
I've talked to him about it a couple times, but I haven't actually physically met
Oh.
him in person.
Hi.
And I was here last week, but we haven't shook hands.
Yeah.
Denise, yeah, we
I saw you Christmas.
Yes,
Your Christmas.
yes.
Judging.
Judging.
Click.
Oh, Mr. Plaza, you're here. Sorry about that. Sorry you were held up.
Yeah.
Those stop signs are brutal. Traffic in this town's a nightmare.
Maybe not. You can go ahead though.
Okay. All right, it's 7:03. Oh, I don't have a sheet in front of me. I'll take that for just one moment. Thank you. It is Monday, January 13th, 2020, and this is a special meeting / workshop for the City Council of Woodland and the Chamber of Commerce for the City of Woodland. So this evening, oh, perfect. This is exactly what I needed. Thank you. So we've got, it looks like a heavy agenda. Mr. Boyce, I'll have you pop through one slide here. Looks like a heavy agenda, but it shouldn't be. Just wanted to get everything out and organized. So before we start this evening, we're going to do some introductions for everyone that is in attendance at the two tables here. So I'm Mayor Will Finn with City of Woodland. Mrs. Holland, we'll start with you.
What?
Introduction.
Just introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deanna. How are you?
I'm Dave Plaza.
Benjamin Fredericks. Monty Smith.
Mary Rip.
Pete Boyce.
Tim Zoltz.
Kim Long. Denise Miller.
Darlene Johnson.
All right. And the four of you, are you the committee for what we're discussing this evening? That would be the four of you. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everybody. This evening we're here to discuss the future planning for the Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center. There will be some presentations, but first I'd like to kind of lay down, not some ground rules, but just kind of why we're here and what we're going to be talking about. So we're talking about the Visitor Center. The folks that are seated at the DS here and along the executive table will be the ones that will be speaking this evening. I understand we've got some folks in the audience. This is a workshop, but the discussion will have to be between the folks sitting up here with me and down there with the executive team. We're not making any decisions tonight. We're not deciding anything tonight, and as you can see at the bottom, when we get down to the end of the meeting, we will be scheduling another come-together session. My hope is that after tonight's discussion and presentations, that we've already got a workshop scheduled for the City of Woodland on Tuesday during a regular meeting to go over this exact topic after everything is laid out this evening. And hopefully they'll have some more questions and be able to sit on what is presented to them this evening and then bring that back at a regular meeting. My hope is that the Chamber of Commerce will also do the same thing, take it back to their executive team, or the committee will decide how that looks, and have the same discussion of what was laid out tonight, and then come back together. I know that there's some concern when it comes to the budget and the lodging tax funding mechanism. We will discuss that at the next meeting, and because that will be something that will be discussed during the council meeting as well, I believe, or during the workshop. That will be council-led. So tonight is strictly talking about the visitor center and the function of the visitor center and some options moving forward. I brought a few to the table, and my understanding is that the committee over here has a presentation this evening as well. So hopefully that everyone can get to the same page and we have a plan moving forward for our future. So, with that said, I appreciate everyone being here this evening and going through this process. It is going to be a process, but I look forward to it and I'm excited about it. So, with that said, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Johnson, and for a Chamber of Commerce budget presentation of some sort or discussion.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused on, because one of the things I thought we were going to talk about was actually the budget. Is that okay? But if the funding mechanism, the funding is part of the budget.
What we can do, how about this? How about we go through the options, because we talk about funding and some price tags and some different options, and then maybe you can weigh in at the end with your thoughts or maybe some of the challenges
Okay.
with what's presented, or you can go now. It's up to you.
First off, I gave you a copy of the budget that we had
Okay.
before, that you've already received. And just one quick statement, the reason that it is up by 5,000 from the prior year is because on the sheet it tells you, the minimum wage, implementing sick pay and family leave and that. And actually our people, we have 3 hourly employees, and 2 of them are at minimum wage. One is at 50 cents more, but each one is going to get about 50 more. And so that's about a 13% increase, and we increased ours about 10 when we asked, because we went from 50,000 to 55,000. And that's kind of all in the thing. But one of the things that the Chamber has been looking at different locations and different things that we can do with the information center. And this has been an ongoing thing for years, because we've always thought that we didn't like our current size of our location, and we can't change that footprint, else we get a new lease with the highway department, and the new leases are quite costly, and they're nothing like we pay zero and they maintain the parking area. So we kind of don't want to go out of that footprint until we have to. So we have been looking at different locations, and I've listed some of the things we've looked at. When we looked at the Truth House, when Jeff Luzo had that up for sale, and I think he's taken it off the market now, but when he had it up for sale, but the board rejected that mainly because of parking and some issues that it didn't present itself with enough room for what we wanted to do, for what we currently have. See, we've got an ideal location right now, because we got all the parking we need, RVs, any size vehicle can come in there, and when you're doing a visitor center, you do have visits from boats and RVs, and they ask a lot of information about the entire area. In fact, they ask information about the whole state. And our people are really good at doing that. And then Tom Gurney Building, which is the building right next to the Oak Tree, which is the chiropractic office. He's quitting being a chiropractor, so that's up for sale. So we've looked into that, and that's still a consideration. And part of the library property, we had talked to them a long time ago about a location in the library area, and that's still a consideration. It's kind of different points of view on where the chamber information would be located on that property. And then the other thing is being part of if the city actually builds a new city hall, whether we would want to be part of that. And so that's all under consideration. The one thing that I've talked to the least expensive method projection would be to stay where we are and stay within that footprint and actually get a new office building, which we can, you can order. And they're quite economical, really, considering other options. And when I talked to the highway department, it was kind of funny because they thought I was going to call and complain about the not cleaning the parking area. So they were in my debt, but all I was asking is timing and they said the soonest anything would ever happen on us having to move would be a minimum of 5 years. So we got a little time to do it, but you don't want to wait till the end to figure out what you're going to do. And so those are the ones that that our committee wanted to bring forward that we've been looking at. And this isn't something that we just started to do. Like, for example, Jeff Russo's property, we did that probably a year or two ago. And so we've had our eyes open for, maybe a new location, because it's possible that when they fix exit 21, that it would take out the entire park and ride. It's possible that it won't, and maybe if it doesn't, that still could be the best place to be, So it's almost contingent on what happens on exit 21 on what would be the best move for us. Well, in anticipation of this, if we're going to do this, how do we get funding? Because the budgets that we proposed throughout our time of operating the center haven't been one to accumulate funds for a new facility. And so we do have some savings, and so we've got, and we never, I shouldn't say, we don't try to meet our budget, we try to go under the budget every time, and whenever we're under budget, it just stays within the coffers. But in anticipating this, I have talked to our legislators who have been very helpful in helping us get grants for the park, the Rotary's park, and I have got not promises, but commitments from Ed and Richard DeVolt at ORCAD, and Representative at ORCAD, Representative Richard DeVolt, that they would put in a grant for us, and I've also got a commitment from Senator Braun. And so, but you can't, it's just like you can't get money for something until you have what you're going to do. And so these are indications they will help us, but there's never any promise, until the money's in the bank. You don't really have a commitment on getting it. I've also talked to our county, Cowlitz County, and to 2 people, and there's only 3 of them, and I've got 2 that will support us in if we apply for a grant there. And the grant there, it looks like it could be like $100,000 on that. But that's no promise either. That's, that's always, when you apply for it, whether it will come to them. So I think the Chamber has been quite proactive in planning for the future. On things that we do, Denise is going to go over things that we're currently doing and things that we're looking at doing. But one thing I wanted to say is I have had more people, like the Economic Development Council and people that bring jobs in industry to Woodland. A lot of times they do that by visiting the area and deciding they like to live here. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that hasn't had a good experience at the information center. In fact, we have one of our people here that moved to Woodland, that I'll speak for him because he can. But and you can stand up and yell, but but like when he moved here, he brought a business, he's in business, he's a CPA, and he's in the accounting area. And where to live, items, school, all those things. He told me that he got all that information from the information center. And so I think it does a very good job, and I think we'd be very less good without the information center. I had asked some of the people that are part of the lodging committee to come, and one of them was Kendra, and people are busy, or I think we would have had one, but when the lodging committee met, which I'm on that committee, they were all very much in favor of funding the chamber up to the $55,000 and going $5,000 into the reserve. And Kendra wanted to be here. And I put a letter that she wrote because she couldn't be here, so I gave you a copy of the letter that she wrote. And then I think we have another person on this panel that has, as a business, how much they appreciate the information. Actually, a couple of people from business. Any questions?
I have a question. I know that there's no commitment, I understand that. So what was the level at the state that they were thinking that they could put into a possible capital item?
Well, when I was talking to them, and they didn't ask, I was looking at the possibility of purchasing the Gurney office, and at that time, my information, it was about $400,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they didn't seem to have heartburn over that.
Okay.
They wanted the county to do something too. They asked if I had any other method of funding. And I told them the county and the city, and there were possibilities, but that I had already talked to the county.
What about Clark?
Clark County, I have gotten not as a good response there.
Okay.
And the reason is they take what little, they give us $5,000 a year, and we're in their budget, and they'll continue to do that. But they took their hotel motel fund and funded the Hilton. So their hotel motel fund is pretty much used up for years.
Okay.
It's been that way ever since we've gotten Clark County involved. And so I didn't even ask them about funding on the building, but that's certainly a possibility. But when you're asking them to take money out of their general fund, it's like asking them to give up their firstborn.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Questions for Mrs. Johnson? Okay. Thank you. We might have some as we go, but
That's fine.
okay. Actually, I'll go down here. Oh, yeah. Scroll forward here. One more. All right, so this evening, I'm bringing three options to the table for a possible option for Chamber to get on board with and partner with the city. I think that this is a great opportunity, as Mrs. Johnson said, that it's hard to find money. But I think that the state and county and all the other entities will be more inclined to donate if there's multiple entities that are participating in a project. At least that's been our experience and from what we're told when we're asking for grants. The more folks that you have involved, the more likely you'll be able to get the funding that you need, or at least a portion of it. Just for the record, council has not seen these this evening, so this is their first time seeing this as well. But my office was asked to do a job, so we went ahead and put it together, so I hope that it's what was asked for. I've got three options I'm going to present to you this evening. All three options are at the same location, which is at 828 Garrick Street, which is partnering with the Fort Vancouver Regional Library. Currently, right now, we have an option on the table to purchase with them or to go into negotiations. They've been given the opportunity to do that with the city. We have yet to do that because we don't have a project yet or a path forward. So we haven't entered into those negotiations with them, and that's why it's still kind of hanging out there, but it is an option to partner with them. They purchased this piece of property at the corner of Buckeye and Lakeshore for just under $1 million a couple years ago for a new library. And with that said, they're not using the entire piece of property. So I approached them and said, hey, what are your plans with that? And right now, they can't give us an exact footprint, but it's somewhere between 25 to 28,000 square feet of land that is left over from their project. And the reason why there is that, the difference is because we don't know what the traffic study for Exit 21 is going to come out with yet. So if there's an intersection as it appears now, it will be the 28,000 square footprint or piece of property that will be left over, and if a roundabout ends up being the option that's chosen at that intersection, it will be closer to that 25,000 square foot. Because of the roundabout, they have to take their project and move it back further. So with that said, that's the other reason why we haven't even, because we don't even have the traffic study done yet to understand exactly how much property is going to be left over. So this would be a shared parking lot. All three options are a shared parking lot with the library, which helps reduce our costs down a little bit because as folks, the parking is an issue for the visitor center. Moving to a different location, it's also going to be an issue for some of the options that are presented here tonight. We're going to need parking for those as well. We'll go ahead to the first option. So first option that we have on the table is just a visitor center. So just moving the location across the street to partner with the library and their parking. It would be about a 1,500 square foot property. It would have a lobby, a coffee shop, or something about that size, the director's office, some restrooms, outdoor seating area, and of course the parking would be shared with the Fort Vancouver Regional folks. This is the cheapest option that's on the table, which could span anywhere between $575,000 to $694,000 or so. Because it's so expensive, well, will be the question, why is it so expensive to build a 1,500 square foot building? Because we're a government agency. In order to partner with us, you have to pay prevailing wage. So price goes up almost double in order to make that happen. So land, we're estimating at about a $220,000 to $269,000 investment, and then the building itself would be somewhere between $355,000 to $425,000. And then the next question is, how are you going to fund it? How are you going to build it? So there's grants. Depending on how much money can come in, the city can bond against the rest. Tourism promotion area, that is something that we've been looking into, but I haven't pulled the trigger on yet. The tourism promotion area is an additional fee on folks that stay here in town at a hotel. So most, if you go to Seattle or some of the larger cities, they charge $1.50 to $2 fee per stay. So if they stay for 3 nights, it's just an additional $2, and that $2 would actually go into tourism funding. So it's a promotional area. We designate an area that says, hey, we want you to come here, historic downtown, try to revitalize that. That money would help fund the visitor center and help be an added dollar figure. There are some things that go along with that. We have to get the hotel folks to get together and approach the city and ask that we implement that. That's not something we can do ourselves. So we'd have to have buy-off from the hotel community to make that happen. And I believe it's only 60% of the hotel community can make that happen. So with that said, we haven't approached them and started collecting that because there's no need for it because we don't have a project on the table again. So I'm not going to collect money that unnecessarily when we don't have anything to spend it on yet. So there's that, and then grants, and of course the lodging tax dollars, the heads and beds, which is currently being spread against the Lilac Gardens, Chamber of Commerce, operations, in bringing events into town. That's where that money's going. Come on in, Mr. Johnson. All right, I'll go ahead and next slide. Option 2, as you can see, gets a little bit more expensive, but it's a little bit bigger. The footprint that we're looking at here, I don't believe that we can go over a 4,000 square foot footprint on the property that's being given to us here. with this option. So you get a 4,000 square foot building out of this. All the options that we threw out in number one would be included in this, along with an additional community room, a meeting space. Currently, right now, where folks are meeting over at the small community center over there, which we're investing some money into this week and trying to get that upgraded because it is an old building. But this would give us an opportunity to have more meeting space in town, which is something that we're lacking, and places for folks to have events such as a birthday party, retirement party, whatever it may be. A retail or small restaurant or office, as in the first one, maybe a little bit larger this time, but then also a dog park or basketball court that would be paired with this piece of property as well. And the reason why we do that is because we can now create a new park within the city, and we can have additional funding. So there's additional park impact fees that we have about $100,000, we have a little over $100,000 in savings, but what we could do is we can take that money to help purchase that land and build that park, which would be a great destination for the folks that are coming into town to the visitor center, especially those traveling with animals. They can get out, have their animals take a break, they can go and get the information that they need, maybe grab a sandwich or a cup of coffee, and then get back and get the information they need for the area, and then back along their way. With that said, though, there are some challenges with this, because that park would always have to stay a park. We could never do anything else with it. If we did want to expand that building, we would actually have to buy it back from ourselves. We would have to take money and put it back into the park impact, or the park mitigation fee account. So it would have to remain a park, but we still get a great facility with some more meeting space, and it's a little over twice the size of that first option that we threw out there. This one here obviously is a little bit more expensive, but again, we would have to create that tourism promotion area. Park impact fees would be used. We'd be using rent from the tenants that are using the coffee shop or little deli to help us pay a mortgage or to upkeep on that facility. Community room fees, right now we charge for those when people come in for a birthday party. It's minimal, but it's revenue that's coming in that we can help support that building. And then also grants, as Mrs. Johnson spoke, going out to the county or to the state or other entities that are out there that are looking to promote tourism. And the next one, this is the, well, this one's my favorite. So this one here creates a new city hall, which is something that is desperate for the city. This checks off a lot of boxes for us. We are currently in a space in downtown that was a temporary space since 1995, which was a 5-year plan to have a new city hall. As you can tell, it's 2020. So this would create an entire complex and a gateway into the downtown area and for our city. This checks off a lot of boxes for a lot of items within the city. We would have an underground parking structure that would be underneath, because if you visited the property, it is slightly elevated, but there's an opportunity to create parking space underneath, along with the shared parking with the FERL. This would be a 4-story building that would be placed there with about about 4,000 square foot footprint or so, depending on how much we can get on there. The park has been eliminated, so we can actually, from that second option, so we can actually expand it out a little bit. This would get us about a 16,000 to 20,000 square foot facility. First floor would be the visitor center, new council chambers, and a retail or restaurant area that would help us, again, help maintain the building and bring in some fees. The room that you're sitting in now is supposed to be a temporary room as well. This was put in here. This is supposed to be a police training center for our police department, and the council chambers was, hey, we have a need here, and this is supposed to be temporary as well. So all our temporary things are continuing to be permanent, so this is a solution for that as well. Second floor would be City Hall, which would be about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. We've done a small study within, or an assessment of City Hall and the services that we're providing. This option here allows us to get all our people back together under one roof. So our Public Works Department would be able to move into the building with us, and the Fire Department would be able to expand as indicated through the plan, and our Public Works building will go away eventually. So we do have a need to move them at some point. This also allows for growth on the third floor as well for a larger City Hall and record storage, which is something that we've got records stored throughout the city, and we could all bring them under one roof as well. The assessment says that in, I believe, was it 15, 20 years, we're going to need about 8,000 square feet for City Hall. With our growth rate and everything, we're looking at about an 8,000 square foot building. So this would allow for future growth. And this also is something that wouldn't have to be done right away. We get the first floor done, and we get the fourth floor done, which would be a small convention center and meeting space, much larger, obviously, for 4,000 to 5,000 square foot convention center, and then a rooftop event space and additional park. Now you say, how do you put a park on top of a roof? Cities do it all the time. But we can use those park impact fees. We believe, we're still doing some research on that, to help us assist in creating that park on top of this building. they're very interesting. They're very interesting. I've done some research on them, and it's another space that we can rent out and collect some additional revenue for events within the city. But with this option, obviously the cost is number one. It's a huge cost. We need to create that tourism promotion area. Parking fees would be used, city space fee would be used. What would happen is as the departments come together, they all have to pay rent somehow for the facility, just like we do now. But bringing Public Works in, they've got more money in the pot than our general fund items, so they can use that for space to help pay the mortgage or building maintenance fees. Event space rentals, of course, similar to what Mrs. Johnson said about Vancouver, creating that and putting that tourism promotion area in there and the event space through grants and possibly bonding. When I say the second and third floor wouldn't have to be built out right away, we could keep it a shell until the city was able to bring that money forward, meaning we'd have to sell our current location and some other properties within the city and put all our resources into this one location. Right now, we've got a handful of properties within the city that we can unload and take that money and dump into a new area. I'm going to have you take the next slide. When we talk about funding mechanisms, I've kind of touched on a little bit, but the lodging tax comes into the city. That's about $140,000 annually right now, and we're currently splitting that with the county. So the city keeps half, and the other half goes to the county. That takes state legislation is needed to make all those dollars come back into the city. That's anywhere between $65,000 to $70,000 that would be put back into the city coffers that we could dedicate to a new facility in any of these options here. As we go through, you'll see that here. Tourism promotion area, we need the owners again to step forward with that, and it's kind of a proprietary information that they keep of how many people are actually staying in their hotels. So we can't put a dollar figure on that until we actually sit down with them and say, hey, how many nights are you having here? How much funding is this going to bring in for us? Is it even feasible? They're not real, excited to give us their number of people that are staying in their beds because we've got competitors in town, obviously. But that's an option there. We have about $100,000 in our park impact fees that we can use. And then, of course, city space fees, rental fees for our actual departments to operate the building. Tenant space fee, not quite sure what that would bring in. That's something that we'd have to look at commercially to see how much space is actually built out in any of those option 2 or 3 to see how much money that would bring in, how much funding, and again, event space fee as well. Legislative grants, we already have a grant right now for almost $1 million for frontage improvements from Buckeye all the way over to the park, which is where the skate park is. So we're already putting in a 10-foot sidewalk and retaining wall and repaving Lake Shore through there. So that's coming. I believe that's going to be coming this summer. We're getting ready to go out for an RFP on that. So we're already investing into the property, which is good, which is going to lower some of the costs that's going on there. And then bonding, of course, which is taking out a loan for 20 years on about $250,000. It's, as you grow here, it's about $1,200 a month is what we estimate that would be. Next slide, please. So in option 1, this is what it looks like. If we have 20% down, what we're looking at is about $36,000 a year. City involvement would be a reduction of annual lodging tax, and these are all the things when I said nothing's happening tonight, because you're going to need to go back and talk about how the Chamber of Commerce is going to proceed. So we see a reduction of annual lodging tax that you're getting now, or support state legislation to change the lodging tax and get the $65,000 to $70,000 back into the city coffers to make this project happen. If the, go back one here. If the chamber were to do this on their own, you're looking at, well, I think my number might be wrong there, but at a 4% loan, if you're private, go out there and get your own loan to do it yourself. We're trying to partner here. We can get a 1% bond or 1% loan versus probably the 4 to 4.5% that the Chamber of Commerce would be able to get. So, next. Option 2, city involvement again, but this would have to support of the tourism promotion area, so getting our partners with our hotel folks coming together and creating that tourism promotion area and charging that stay fee, basically, that $150 to $2 stay fee. As you can see, it's about $50,000 a year for the city to do this option, but again, we would be subsidized with grants and also usage of the building and possible retail lease. Next. And the big one I can't really do anything on, just because the cost is so much, it's hard to say, but because we have to break down our budget and see exactly how much space each department would be taking up and how much money would be coming from those departments. But basically, everything I just said, plus we'd be going out and targeting potential commercial businesses to come in and help us with that lease, and then also advertising our convention center and making sure that we're able to fill that up and make it useful for everybody. So there's that one there is a larger conversation. Obviously, it's a larger dollar figure, but if we can partner together, we'd have to sit down and really dive down into our budget to see exactly what we have and what we can't afford. And again, that comes back to the building out first floor and the fourth floor and the city not moving right away, but eventually building out those second and third floors to move in. And I think that's next one. Yes. Any questions for me on those ones? Go ahead.
Who would own the buildings?
The city. The city would own those buildings at this point. And all those options, yes, we would have to, especially if we had a loan on it, we would, but at some point it would be paid off, and at that point it would just be another asset to the city. All right, Mrs. Miller? Oh, yes, Mr. Fredericks.
So, this building was done by William Scotsman, and it was done off-site to avoid having to pay the prevailing wage. You know if that's something that the state legislature, did they close that loophole, to not allow that going forward?
My understanding is we're not allowed to, government agencies are not allowed to buy prefab buildings anymore. That's been taken off the table.
Okay.
But I don't know if the legislation's changed on that, but that was the last I heard about it.
On the tourism promotion area, are you allowed to, how does using the money, how does that work? Are you allowed to bank it and use it for a project later, or do you have to have a project?
It's a great question. We've dove into it, and maybe Mr. Boyce knows the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to that.
But I just know in order to implement it, we have to get the hoteliers together.
Right.
And
We've been operating under the premise that we'd have the project before we actually collect it. So,
I read the law and I didn't, that doesn't sound right to me. I think you just need to have a certain percentage of.
yeah, I'm not saying the law
Yeah.
requires that, I'm just,
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
as an organization, I didn't feel comfortable doing that.
Okay, and then the bonding capacity, what is the city's bonding capacity currently?
Yeah, we don't have that figure in front of us right now, but we do have room to bond.
Okay,
These are all great questions for Tuesday.
well,
Okay.
Tuesday questions.
Okay. Bonding capacity. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Miller? I was unable to get your presentation into my slide deck here, so we're going to do a quick switch out. So the question is, can we collect that dollar figure and hold on to it until we're ready to spend it? Okay. On the tourism promotion, okay. My understanding too, with that tourism promotion area money, it's very similar to the lodging tax. It has to be spent on specific
Right.
things, so.
But does it have to be spent all at once, or can it be
Okay,
banked?
gotcha.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's it. We're wrong.
Thank you.
No, sorry, thank you, and I knew that. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
Good evening. So these are just kind of like some of our goals and my plans on how we're going to get more through the door, whether it's our visitor center door, the hotel doors, the restaurant doors. Just we want more bodies through the doors to be paying those head and bed taxes. So I'm going next. So these are some of the services we offer. We do website and social advertising. We started really hitting that hard here this last month, and it's not just social advertising for ourselves, it's for all of our members and the businesses in the area as well, because I'm not sure if anyone knows really, or if you guys know about how well social media works, but the more you post, the more people share. It essentially is like this little circle, and it starts growing, and it starts touching more and more and more people, and that's how we're going to get more people to come to our area. So our visitor center does local information and maps. We do recreation passes and different types of information. Just last Friday, I think I ended up selling 4 passes in like a half an hour. Kim was one of them. So some of our goals is I am going to get our visitor center gals, and we're going to go visit the area locations again. We've all been to Mount St. Helens. We've all been to the visitor centers, but things have changed. Things change every single year. And I want our people to have the most up-to-date information, so when they get asked a question, they undoubtedly know the answer. And then I'm also going to work with our other chambers and our other visitor centers to see what they're doing to get people to come visit their communities. Events, we're doing an open house next month on the 20th. We want everyone to come in, see what our visitor center has to offer, see how valuable our center is and the knowledge our gals have. I want our visitor center gals to start attending our after hours, which is an event we do every month with our local businesses, so we can all learn about each other's businesses and network and do different things. So I'm going to talk about these next things in more depth, but attractions I want to do a South Gateway Passbook. I'll explain it more. And a weekend in Woodland, a small business Saturday, Planners Day booth information, and then I'm sure everyone knows, but it's the 40th anniversary of Mount St. Helens this year, and so we need to get more people up our roads to our locations to see these things. So first of all, I'm going to show you our visitors over the years. I went actually all the way back to 2010, and this looks scary. It looks like it's going down, and this is the reason why it's going down. So if you want to go ahead to the next slide. So there's 2 reasons why it's going down. In speaking with our previous director and our previous employees, the way the count used to be is every person that walked through the door, they would times them by 3. They assumed there was always 2 people that were sitting in the car that they didn't see. So probably about, I think it was when the previous person came on, he's like, we can't do that, it doesn't make sense, we just cannot do that. And so we now do accurate counts, because that way we have accurate information and we can accurately project our spending. Another reason why is times have just simply changed. People do not go into visitor centers as much as they used to. They go to Google. They use their thumbs and they type and they go on Google. They go on Facebook. So we're going to have to change the way we get people into our doors and into our visitor center. May it be, hey, social media, do you guys know that we sell Discover passes? Come see us. You don't need to go down to other places. You can come right to us. And hey, we have all this great information. You want to know the historical information? These gals know so much information. There's little tidbits that you might not be able to find on Google and on Facebook that they can explain to you. So, what is tourism? I'm sure everyone knows what tourism is. When you go be a tourist, you have your fanny pack on, you're taking pictures of everything, taking selfies where you're at. But tourism is actually when you travel 50 miles away from where we're at in Woodland. So if you want to hit next, here's the map of where we're at. Hit next again. They have to be outside of that circle to be 50 miles away. So people who are from Portland are technically not tourists in our city because they are within 50 miles of us. So we need to start reaching out past this 50 miles to get people to come in. We had a really cool story last week at our meeting. We started posting the VFW information on our reader boards and on our Facebook for their breakfast. And Susan told me about this guy who flew in from California, he flew into Seattle, and he was driving down, and he was like, about time for breakfast, he gets off I-5, and he's looking around, he didn't want to go to Carl's Jr., he doesn't sure where to go, and he turns right and looks, and sees our reader board, and he goes, VFW breakfast, and it happened to be the day he was here. So he turned right, drove to the VFW, and had breakfast. He is technically a tourist, because he is outside of 50 miles. So we need to start getting more people like that. Maybe not just for VFW breakfast. Maybe go stay at Maple Ridge or do other things. Go visit Burgerville. But we need to get more people from outside of 50 miles. So, I don't know. Is that loud?
Mr. Welch, you're breaking the rules. Remember your question, we'll get it.
So in the previous slide, I was talking about doing a passbook or a Mount St. Helens gateway. So something that's really cool is, we have 503 and 504, and there's all these different ways to get to Mount St. Helens. So 40th anniversary is coming up. How do I get people to stop at all these different places without us having to spend money, but get them for the visitor center to spend money, but spend money in all your businesses? So it's called a social media passbook. Instead of being a physical passbook that they get stamped, we're going to pick certain stops along 503, and they're going to have to take a picture of it. They're going to have to tag us in it so we get free advertising. They're going to our places, And then they get to actually see it, and when all their friends see it, there's that, once again, reaching out and touching other people from 50 miles away. I plan on making this and launching this on April 1st, so it's going to be before May, so before the anniversary, because also, knowingly, you need to promote ahead of time so people go, oh, okay, this is when we can start doing this, this is when we need to start going, and then we're going to do it to the end of June. So the next step to that, working with the CEDC, I was talking to Lindsay, and we're talking about doing a physical passbook. So the social media one's cool. I'm not sure about you guys, but I really like tactile. I like holding something in my hands. I like the physical aspect of it. So instead of doing just the same spots, we're going to do different chapters. So we're talking about doing an ale trail. So you go stop by tap rooms and breweries, the wine trail, the boutique trail, and then a Bigfoot trail, because everybody loves Bigfoot. And then each would have their own little kitschy prize, just something enough to keep them interested and keep them driven to finish. And then, of course, we'll think of something, if they can finish all chapters, it would be a little bit more substantial because they did a lot of work driving around our county. Go ahead and go next. Okay, so I'm running out of breath now. My next thing is, I want to do a weekend in Woodland. And we want to do one of these per season if we can. So you go, man, I want to go to Woodland. What would we do if we go to Woodland? Where would you stay? Where would you eat? Where would you drink? And where would you play? And each season, it's a different, it looks different. Either you're fishing in the spring and the fall, or you're going up and you're looking at the Mount St. Helens in the summer, or you're stopping here and hanging out before you head up to White Pass or down to Mount Hood for the winter, or driving in the snow up towards Mount St. Helens, because you can snowmobile there. So it's just a different way to show how our community can be utilized. And once again, more hotel motel tax. So I want to implement Small Business Saturday, and it is in November 28th this year. And the way I want to do this is I kind of looked at how Longview and Kelso did theirs, and what they do is they work with all their small business people and essentially put together a map of where all these small businesses that are participating. And you go, okay, this one's offering 10% off this, 20% this, you buy one, get one free. First 25 people get this for free. And you publish the map, and you do a directory, and you promote it, and then you help the actual companies themselves promote as well, using the marketing material we put together, so it ties back to the visitor center and the chamber, so it's cohesive, essentially, and it's simple. A lot of communities do Small Business Saturday. It's usually the day after Black Friday. Okay, so here's my future if I have my visitor center. Well, actually, not yet. So this is the buildings that Darlene was talking about. So building A was, let's see here. So building A was the Luthold property. So it was a bigger space. It was a cool historic building. So those are pros. The cons were the cost to purchase, the maintenance of a historic building, and lack of parking. Building B, which is the Gurney building, was a bigger space. It has a meeting room, so we could have larger meetings. We could actually have our board meetings in there, and we could also probably rent it out. It's also visual from the off-ramp, which is very nice. We could have a giant sign, hey guys, stop here, it's our visitor center. The cons are, everyone knows it's the bad traffic there. It might get wiped out with the interchange. Lack of parking and high operating costs. When I called to see how much they paid in electricity per month, it was quite high. Building C, which is what it will show next. Bigger space, meeting rooms, community space, and timing, it would just need to be built. The next one. So we crossed out that one. Luthold was not an option. And then go ahead to the next one. Okay, so if I could have my vision, if I could have anything, this is my absolute pipe dream, if I could have my visitor center. The first floor would be the Woodland Visitor Center. We'd invite someone like the Historic Museum to join us, and then in the middle, we'd have like a coffee sandwich shop for people to stop, kind of go between the two, have some snacks. Second floor would be rental office space for smaller starting out businesses, and I want to make sure everything is up to like 2020 standards. I want AV in every room. I want it to be plug and play ready. The third floor would be community rental rooms with kitchenettes. That way we could host our chamber meeting upstairs. We could rent it out for birthday parties, and then the same thing, I want AV built into every room. This one has some animation, so you have to keep clicking.
Oh,
So that would be the visitor center. Next one would be the museum or whomever we help get with us. And the middle would be the coffee shop. You can just go ahead and do a couple clicks here. So these would be the rental offices upstairs. Once again, this is not to scale, this is just my idea. Cubes. And then the last story would be the community rooms. And then that'd be our community center. So that's my vision and that's my goal. So you got a little bit of my goals for 2020 and how we're going to get more people into Woodland, and then as well as my vision. So
Where's that? Yes, well done, thank you. Well, very good. I'm a little jealous you did animations. I didn't do anything. I'll have to up my game next time. Did you folks talk about a location for the other ones? It looks like were pre-existing, but for building C, did you?
nope, it's a pipe dream. You haven't
Okay.
come up with that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr.
You
President.
mentioned several times, and I just want to be clear, you mentioned this is your vision. I want to make sure that you're, is that the?
It is. I just want to make sure that people don't think it's, how do you say this? Yes, it is our board.
Okay, yes. Just wanted to clarify that. You said it a few times, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Did you guys talk about funding, or is it Mrs. Johnson kind of gave a brief discussion at the beginning of
She did our
options
funding.
and reach outs that
Correct.
you can call upon? Okay, perfect. Get Mr. Welch's question and ask it.
Mr. Welch.
This idea of a tourist having to be from outside of the 50-mile radius,
That's what they technically, if you look up like the definitions,
what's
that's
the significance of that when we all know most?
hotel motel.
Laws.
Oh.
When you're trying to get money from a hotel motel.
So usually if you're within
it's
50
like
miles
you
of
have to
drive.
advertise 50 miles out and
Okay.
yeah.
And the reason I show that is a lot of people will go, okay, 50 miles, but if you look at it, that's Chehalis.
Yeah.
And pretty far south past Portland. So, I mean, it's,
I mean, a great bulk of our business, small as it may be, is out of the Portland area.
so technically not
And they're paying
tourism.
taxes.
Are we going to allow everyone to?
We're going to have to now.
I'm sort of. I thought if that rule was different if you bordered another state. I
Oh.
thought it didn't have to be 50 miles.
As far as I understood, it has to be 50 miles.
That's a great question for
That
the
is
next
a
meeting.
great question.
Thank you for that. I've never heard that.
Either am I. Yes, shoot.
I'm gonna look into that.
You're not tracking demographics from just visitors, you're watching.
So we do ask, so we have a sign-in book. The way it works is if they want to sign in, it does ask, like, are you asking like what state they're from and stuff? You're asking like more actual demographics, like age and stuff?
An age range.
Yeah.
Because I'm going back to what you said earlier about the generation that we're currently in is a generation that, Google, they'll Google something, and versus making a stop in. A lot of people, maybe it's uncomfortable because they don't want to talk to anybody, they just want to find out their own information and go.
Yeah.
So, that I'm making a wild assumption that there has to be a decrease in the number of visitors simply because technology is better.
What I've heard is there's a mix. There's also people don't know it exists. They don't know we are our building and what we do. And so that's something, a part of my social media I'm trying to increase and get people to know that we exist and to come and stop. Because if you don't have an online presence, they don't know to come.
Right.
Because when they do go to Google or wherever they're at, they're not going to find us. And if they can find us and they do know to stop there, they will. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. You know, you want to make sure you're putting out information so they can find it and find you, but you put out so much information they don't come physically see you.
You sell the Discover passes there?
Discover passes and the forest passes, and I think I'm going to add the snow park passes. We currently do not carry those.
And those are all currently items that you can purchase online?
Online, I believe you can do the Discover pass, yes, but we
So-
physically have them.
So you would definitely be able to help someone who didn't plan ahead on a whim, wants to go.
Happens often.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
Or they didn't know they needed them. Like
Right.
they'll drive up to up the road and then they'll literally drive 40 miles away or 40 minutes away and they have to come all the way back down because they don't want to get a ticket.
Is there a service fee that you guys collect on that? Do you make any money off of those?
We do collect a $2 service fee, which
Okay.
is basic. You go to Walmart, any of them, they do the $2 as well.
And what's that money go towards? Does that just go towards operations or?
Operations.
Okay, like a general fund item? Okay.
May I comment to Mr. Carter? My background is, I used to be a CFO of an internet company, so I'm about as internet-y as it gets. And I do a lot of RV traveling as well. And so I do a lot of Google. I'm Mr. Google. But when it actually comes down to it, you have to actually go see somebody face to face because you can never really get what's going on until you actually talk to somebody. And I found that in a lot of cities, a lot of places. So
The insider knowledge.
I totally understand, yeah, we are more of a thumb, clicky, but when you actually get to that new city and you have no idea what's going on, seeing a face kind of clears a lot of things up quickly.
So we gotta make sure everyone knows we're here.
Mr. Boyce, can you go back to slide 4, please? My eyes are going to bring my glasses, so I can't see the numbers.
I'm trying to save paper.
No, I know. Going to the visitor count, that one right there. So, judging by, when did you start counting accurately?
My understanding was about 2016.
Can't you just divide that by 3?
I was just going to say, so that's what I was getting. So, if you said 2016.
It was my understanding, but I don't have for sure.
So,
About the right time.
About the right
That's
time?
what they were telling me.
Is it multiplied by 3 or added 3?
Something that all visitor centers
We're doing.
were doing.
It was a normal
It
thing.
was throughout the state, and we were one of the ones that wanted to get that changed, because we wanted the more accurate.
are the other ones still counting by 3?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Does this play into your grant or funding when we're asking from the state? Do they ask for this information to say how many people are you getting in the door?
Yeah, and what they really like is we have 20 or 30 different countries, outside besides the states. And so I think that they don't ask so much for the count is kind of where. And, like we got Germany, Norway, we have just a whole bunch. And actually, those tourists really do want to talk to someone face to face.
And they love saying the book.
So I'm just looking, if we were to time, actually you've had an upswing in visitors if we were going to time, you had a downturn in 2019, but compared to 2015. Okay.
On a 3-year comparative basis, by 2022, using the math, you're at 2,700 visitors.
That's if we don't turn things around.
Well, right. But then that goes back to that technology push. I just, when I look at it.
I could, and that was the thing is why I was putting that. I hemmed and hawed for a moment of putting this in there because I was like, they're going to literally see the slope going down. And then at the same time, I like to show, I like seeing numbers because it's data.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see hard facts. And I hope to bring this back to you next year and you're going to see it go boop, back up. And the reason I want to show it to you guys, it shows you a baseline, so when we do talk about it and we do start getting more people back in, you guys go, okay, yeah, I remember seeing where they're at, and now they are going up, so it is good. We do need to keep our funding, we do need to keep going up, and just one hand washes the other.
I personally, I don't have any, I've never had an issue because I think the visitor center does a great service.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's more about what's the long-term vision for the facility and what does that look like? Where is it at? How do we start looking at some of the facility options, which I'm really glad that we're taking a look at. But as far as the value that it brings, I think there's value there definitely. And so I want to be clear, my initial request for this information was not for me thinking that there's not value in this, because there's a tremendous amount of value. But when we start looking at long-range plans, and you've got a trailer that's, a lot of what we've done in Woodland for several years is, we'll go there, it's temporary, and 25 years later, we're still talking about it.
Yep.
And I think that's the concern, is our job up here is to make sure that we have a vision, 5, 10, 15, what does that look like? going forward and make sure that we're planning appropriately, and that's the main purpose of kind of my issue with the whole, what's our plan, what's our vision? So I appreciate the work that was done by both parties.
Okay. Any other questions for Mrs. Miller? Okay, thank you very much. We'll go back to my slide deck, Mr. Boyce. Mrs. Miller, did you have a size on your plan?
I do
No?
not.
Okay. Cruise on through. There. All right, so next steps. As I said in the beginning, there's a lot of information to take in. There's no decisions being made this evening. My hope is that this information will go back to both entities. We're going to have a workshop on it to discuss a path forward or possible other options. I forgot about, I think it was great that during your presentation, Mrs. Miller, about the Historical Society, I forgot about them. It'd be nice to bring them out forward and have them getting some foot traffic as well and some recognition for the work that they do. So good job. I totally forgot about them. So those types of things are items that council can discuss as well, or other entities that we can bring forward to help us with the plan. We will be having another meeting collectively again, another one of these. After the workshop, we'll get together and decide what a good time is to meet, to come back together and discuss what both parties have, or both entities have discussed, and hopefully come up with a compromise or a path forward of what both sides want, and hopefully create that long-range plan. I know, Mrs. Johnson, you said it's going to be at least 5 years or so for DOT. I think it's going to take us a while, though, to get into a plan and move forward, so it'd be nice to have it ready to go when it's time, or even started. No, I know. I was agreeing with the statement that you made, that you said we do need to get a plan going, though. So hopefully we'll have that in the next meeting. Also at that next meeting, we'll be discussing the Lodging Tax Committee funding. I know that it doesn't sound like they need to reconvene. It's just a council action that would need to be taken to provide additional council funded 6 months, and that other 6 months can just be released, it sounds like, with the swipe of a pen. So that can be discussed as well. I'm assuming that during the workshop, council will be discussing funding, and because there was a lot of information that came forward and what that looks like. Questions from anybody about the process or expectations? No?
It would be helpful to have answers to the.
Yeah, no, I've got them.
On Tuesday when we
Okay.
discuss.
Okay. Any questions from the chamber? Or comments? No? Okay. Well, with that, our next meeting, we'll talk about those outcomes and possible funding mechanisms moving forward if we want to get started with the tourism fee, or
Yes.
tourism promotional area fee, sorry. Yes, Mrs. Johnson.
When is the next meeting that has to do with the funding of the budget?
Would you like to set that time now? We can set that time now.
Sure.
Okay. Let's look forward. Yeah. We'll talk about that Tuesday, but they're going to want to know. Yeah. Yeah, we'll discuss it or you'll discuss it as a group. Let's see. What's this? Let me get my free calendar out. It would be the 21st. 22nd. So we're looking into February. Is there a time that works or does not work? Do you want to hold another workshop? Obviously, do you want to hold another workshop, or you just want to come to have a discussion at council?
I think on the budget, we could just come to council.
Okay.
You know, I think if we're going to do more workshops, it'd be on what we're going to do on,
Okay, moving forward.
future plan. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then let's go ahead and set it on the count. Let me see. Gotta make sure we have enough time here. That's a meeting. Let's see. 1, 2. did Finance Committee talk about, when's the next Finance Committee meeting?
February 3rd?
February 3rd. Let's put it on that for February 3rd, and then on the council meeting for February 3rd as well. February 3rd.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order from any side? Nope. Okay. All right, the time is 8:06, and that concludes the meeting. Thank you.
We saw something.